Welcome to the Fatherhood and Sonship podcast, a podcast where we share, discuss, and learn our experiences and understanding on fatherhood and sonship. Let's go! Welcome everybody to our very first fatherhood and sonship podcast.
With the rent crowd.
My name is Aron and I will be your host for today. Today we are going to speak about sonship. And recently I heard good news, great news that I'm going to be a first-time dad. So in my heart, hunger became an arise that as days passed on to understand and grow in fatherhood. And it didn't stop there. It actually led into sonship. And so with that, I have three very special guests with me today. Who they will introduce them a little bit about themselves. I'll ask them to introduce themselves. So I'll start with my dad here on the left. My left. Carlisle, he's my dad. I don't need to say anything else about that. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself, Daddy.
Okay, yeah, I think you've basically done it yourself for me now. Thank you. But I'm Carlisle, and it's such a privilege and a joy to be here with these distinguished guests here with me. And thanks for the invite, Aron, and thanks for involving us. And I hope we will have an awesome time of sharing and talking. And
Definitely.
what do they call it? It's a podcast.
It's
Podding.
a podcast, yes.
So are we podding?
Something like that.
We like peas in the pod.
Yes.
Peas in the pod.
There you go.
4 peas in the pod.
And then next to my dad is my other dad, my dad-in-law. I have the privilege of having two dads in my life. Theodore, or Theo as we like to call him. Daddy, you don't.
That's not fair. You can't have two dads. We've only got one.
He's got two.
Yeah. So
Thank you, Aron. I'm Theo Swartz, Aron's other dad. And again, it was my privilege to be here next to his dad, Carlisle, and my own son over there, Mikhail. Once again, thanks for the invite, Aron.
it's a pleasure.
And I hope that we're going to just continue to grow in this experience as well.
There we go.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Daddy. And then to my right, I have the privilege, and thanks to God, I inherited I gained a brother, the only brother that I probably have, other than my other brothers from another mother. Mikhail, thank you for joining us. Can you introduce yourself to the peoples?
To the people. Hello, people.
Dr. Mikhail Swartz.
Oh, dear.
Please, I have to.
No,
I'm
don't be
joking.
that guy. Don't be that guy. You're not the lady in the bank.
What is that about the lady in the bank?
Oh, the lady
Let's
in the
not
bank.
go there.
That's
another story.
Story for another,
Another
day.
podcast.
A whole other podcast on finances.
Okay.
As it's been mentioned, I'm Mikhail. Theodore is my dad. Aron is my brother by marriage, but my first brother as well, believe it or not, which is great. It's an absolute privilege and an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having us.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
It's beautiful here in Franschhoek. It's been
Amen.
a great day. We had a lovely breakfast / brunch this
Yes,
morning.
that's
and,
right.
It's been a really peaceful, really blessed day. So
Very rest.
it's good to, I think conclude this day with something like this. I think
There we
it's
go.
amazing. Yeah.
Awesome.
So, thank you guys for joining me on this. I really felt that on my heart, and I think God also just, stirred. It's been a long time. I mean, we had to postpone this a while. I took a while to set all of this up, but we're here. We're excited. God is good. And I think what I'll do is I'll just open the floor with a question, just obviously a couple of questions, but anybody's welcome to answer. And the first question I had was, What would be, oh, sorry, for those of you who don't know, the topic today for the first episode is about what is sonship and what does it mean? And that's just the generic for yourselves. Everybody has their own story. So I'd like to hear from everybody here. So the first question is, what would be your own definition of sonship, and what was the influence behind that definition for yourself? I don't know, Dad, if you want to go.
Okay, let me start.
Go ahead.
You don't mind
Open the
me
floor.
Googling it and then just leave it?
No. I actually, when I thought about this question, the first draft that came out was like, if you had your own dictionary and you were able to write the definition of sonship on it, what would your own experience for sonship? What does it mean in your own?
My own words, my own.
Yes.
I wouldn't say a fabrication, but my own understanding. Yeah.
Yes.
I think sonship in general for me is that close association.
Your mic is a bit low there.
That close association you have with a father, because you can't be a son without a father.
Yes.
And that's why I'm a little jealous that you have two fathers. But that in itself, that the whole thing of sonship is a unique relationship. It's no ordinary relationship because it is a sense of, as I said, togetherness, close association. And this close association has a specific way of relating to one another. There's just something special of how a son relates to his father.
Yes.
And I think we've all had different experiences in relating to our own fathers. I mean, here we are, we don't have our fathers around anymore, but in the time when we had them around, our relationship was actually very different to our own fathers. And when we look at you as our sons, or you particularly, Aron, as my son, then I can also see the different relationship that we had in terms of father and son. The core is the same, because you relate as father and son, but the scope and the way it unfolded was very different than I had with my dad and that I have with you as a father. I don't know. I'm speaking now, almost in your shoes. Yeah.
Coming back to sort of fathers, did you have any father figures in your life that
Yeah, I had actually father figures. I think we grew up with that whole. I grew up with this whole respect thing. When it didn't need to be a flesh and blood person, but I always just had this liking, this enjoyment of sitting with an older person and just hearing where they come from, and that was for me a father-son relationship as well, because it's a sense of respect.
Okay, cool.
Wonderful.
And for you, Daddy?
Aron, I don't know. That's a very complicated question, but for me, the idea of father-son relationship is quite deep and it's quite unique. Sometimes from my perspective is that, that relationship needs to be in place before any other relationships can really develop or blossom and stuff like that. Now, a lot of us didn't have that relationship with our own fathers, so we're always looking for it in other places as well, and there is a closeness. That's why people enjoy playing rugby, or sports, because we want that togetherness. We want that
sense of belonging.
Camaraderie. So that's a need in us, and if you didn't have a good relationship with your own father, you will always be looking for something. You know what I mean? And we can never really be happy if that connection isn't there. So that's why if we turn to God, if we turn to spirituality or Christianity, you know what I mean? Now we're beginning to fulfill that portion of our lives, And so that is unique. And only Christianity can really give you that, I think, to sort of mend that relationship.
And so you found that
in my own life?
Yes.
Yes, and I've seen
And what
it
was your
in other-
experience?
It's varied. I've had, I didn't have a very good relationship with my own dad because my own dad died when I was very young. He was somebody who drank a lot. So he had a big stomach and he had back pain all the time. All right. So I was the one to rub his back. You know what I mean? And I remember distinctly that I was longingly looking through the window, seeing my other brothers and sisters playing while I have to rub the guy's back here. So for me, it was not a good thing. You know what I mean?
Were you the eldest?
No, I was the youngest. I'm the
Okay.
youngest. So for me, it was like but you did what the old man wanted. So that was my thing.
Okay.
But then growing up. Then my mother remarried. She married a very older man. He's almost twice her age. So that was my father-in-law. Then, my stepdad, and he's a Muslim guy. And I was actually I think he came into my life at the time when I was developing and becoming, getting my own identity type of thing.
Yeah.
So he came at the right time for me and he loved me. He loved me to bits, And he was a guy that was welding exhaust pipes in the backyard with.
Side joke, I'll say later.
Yeah, he did gas welding. You know what I mean. So he had his own business, welding stuff like that. So and I was always the one helping him, holding here and stuff like that. So we had a good relationship, and then he passed away. And then the other relationship man in my life was also another older gentleman, but he was the priest of our church.
Okay.
And he took me under on my wing when I was just baptized. He sort of wanted me in, and he made me part of his cabinet. And then I ran off, not ran off, but we went to visit
together.
other churches, and and he sort of got me going. So I was almost like a Paul, was it? Timothy Paul's relationship.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, I had a couple of fathers that helped me along the way. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And yeah,
That's incredible. No, sorry, we were laughing earlier because Mikhail's heard, so they figured out that there was a exhaust.
welding. Type
They need so we're just thinking. Anyway, side note, my brother. What about you?
Yo, I'm fortunate to still have my dad.
Sure.
As are you.
Yes.
So I think we are privileged in that way. I think we're living in a time where the whole toxic masculinity,
Sure.
the man must just be respected and hard, and that kind of societal thing is being chipped away at. I think it's actually a good thing. I think that the relationship between our dads and their dads was probably more of a son, this is what you do, and then you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was very much like a very strict, very respect, just rigid type relationship. And your dad, I'm sure, has told you he loves you. My dad does the same. But I think if you go steps up, higher and higher up the generations, it probably happened less and less. So I think it's for me, sonship is a big learning experience, and you kind of have to navigate the relationship dynamics, and I think that's a very difficult thing for any young man. To stand up for yourself because you're growing up and you're supposed to be a man, stand up for yourself, but to still not be disrespectful. I think that's a very, very fine line that you have to walk. I must be able to tell my dad, I really don't like what you did. I really don't like what you said. I don't think that that's right, or I disagree about this financial thing, or I disagree about whatever the case may be, without being rude about it. And I think for me that personally is something that I have to actively think about. How do you how do you establish yourself within the greater sense and still not, because, each man has his domain, and there's, you have dominion over your domain, and we enter each other's domains, and there's an alpha male situation always. And, you go to your parents' house, and your dad's the man of the house.
Yeah.
You're not the man of your dad's house. I'm not the man of my dad's house. And then when he comes to my house, I'm the man of that house. And that is a very interesting dynamic. So for me, it's a big thing. It's a big thing. It's definitely about respect. I think that filters down. But I think from the son's perspective to the father, it's a unique situation where you need to remain respectful but still establish yourself. So I think that's something for me. I don't know if I've answered your question, if I'm just rambling along, but when I think about what it is to be a son, it's very much about that. I remember years ago playing hockey, and I think it was under 14, if I'm mistaken. And we're playing an interprovincial tournament, and my dad is going crazy on the sidelines. He's just he's coaching more than the coach, and we were losing that game. We were getting our butts handed to us. And at the end of the game, the team's disheartened, and these guys just outplayed us, like left, right, and center.
Sure.
And at the end of it, we all disheartened. And I remember walking off the field and saying to my dad, like, why are you shouting at me and the team? Like let us play. Like you're bringing us down almost. And I remember the look on his face, and he was just like, he was there to support me and to encourage the team and to encourage me and to get the best out of me in that moment. And I didn't receive it that way.
Sure.
And I don't know, I was quite a hothead when I was younger. I still am, I think, to an extent. But I can just imagine what my face looked like, and what I was feeling in that moment was not how it came across. And I think it's as I said earlier, like an interesting dynamic, and you need to be quite introspective and reflective about these things and reevaluate. Did I actually convey what I wanted to in a manner that's received well? And if it's not received well, is that on me, or is that on the party that received it that's unwilling to receive the message? So, yeah,
I think it's.
Can I just come in
please,
there?
yes.
I think Mikhail is right. I almost think I remember the incident as well.
Do you remember, or do you think you remember?
I think I remember it.
Okay.
And I think it was the way we were sort of motivating on the line. From that time, I changed the way I encouraged them. You understand? Because I was saying, Mikhail, don't do, it was like almost like a disappointing type of support. After that, I changed my motivation. I was saying, unlucky boy, unlucky, and then next time, and then because I changed my motivation on the sideline.
Yes.
Because I realized on that incident, I was not encouraging. I was more bringing them down in the way I was encouraging, even though I was, you know what I mean? I was excited.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was a learning moment for both of us.
Just one on that one as well. It was very interesting that I was also shouting at Aron many times on
That's how
playing rugby.
I know.
So there you go. The one that stood out to me is, "Come on, Aron, pull out your finger." And then he looks at me and he's looking, "Which one?" I think he was about 6 years old.
Yeah.
And he was quite serious. Which one? Yeah, which one? But another latch on there, you mentioned something very special, I think, is that thing about your father telling you that he loves you, which I didn't really get that much,
Sure.
Because
when you sorry to
no problem.
when you say you didn't receive that, Was it what is it that you were looking for?
Let me tell you what I was getting.
Okay.
I was getting this hiding. And then I'm told, I do that because I love you. That's the only time I was told I was loved.
Sure. Okay.
You know,
That was
but
brutal.
That was quite brutal. Yeah. I can give you some more gory details on it, but it was very brutal. So, but that was the way they were working through things, and they were, you know, I don't really blame my dad. I don't say he was wrong, he was right, but it was just the way he didn't actually really grow up with his father. He did, but in a certain sense, it was not. He did. It's like you learned from your dad, and then you pass it on. I think that's what we're talking about. But then in that learning, you also realize what is good and what is bad, and you throw out what is bad, and you just invest in what is good. And I think that's what and I think specifically you also mentioned about the whole thing when Christ came onto the scene, that whole spiritual awakening. And then suddenly, this is what was powerful in my life, is that suddenly myself and my dad, we were on the same level. Now, I mean, we still had respect. I think you said it nicely as well in terms of coming to each other's homes. But in terms of relationship, that we are not just merely sons and fathers, but we are also sons before God, equal sons before God. You know, my father doesn't have a better standing before God than what I have. And I think when it sort of combines, you know, the whole natural father and son, and then the spiritual father and son, and then you relate accordingly. When it's spiritual relationship, then you know that you can deal with one another and you can appreciate one another on that level, on the similar level. But when it comes to the natural father and son, then you obviously recognize, you know, your father is, not to say that you're disrespectful on the spiritual level. It's just that there's an equality spiritually, you know, that's the way God made us. As much as we are father and son, and we have different relationship in terms of the way we are, so much we are sons before God, and in that standing, we can relate equally, and that's actually a very exciting. You can almost call it step up, because not to say that you're looking for a better. You know, when we're young, we always want to be bigger. Not to say that you're now looking, I can, like, my dad's my chummy and stuff like that. But it's more a question of spiritually, you really have such a lot of positivity because you are together in understanding who God is and relating to God. And I remember the day of my father's funeral. I said, you know, the day that I discovered God as my father, then I discovered my father as my father too.
Wow.
That was really awesome, because before that, it was a rejection. It was not in all senses, but in a majority of my relationship with my father, there was a lot of rejection in not agreeing with him, not happy with his way he's treating me, and yes, there were beautiful times, but somehow the negativity started. Especially in the teenager times, like you said, you needed that person in your teenager time. In my teenager times, I went off my rockers, off the boat, and my dad wasn't really there to steer me in the right direction. Or he wanted to, but his way of doing it was pushing me further away. It was making me more rebellious. And yes, he did love me, that's for sure.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Yeah, and you know, our dads never sat us down and said, now, boy, listen to me. This is what you do. A, B, C, D. You know what I mean? It is like you have to pick it up as you go along. You understand? Nobody stops you and says, by the way, that was wrong. Now this is the right way. Nothing like that.
Good example is when I was about 14, we went to Swaziland on a holiday. And then we camped out. There were a lot of prostitutes. And then we didn't know what prostitutes were in the first place. And then suddenly my dad calls us into this caravan we had. And now he's going to explain to us what these people are on about. For the first time, he's talking sex to us. My mom said,
oh no!
That was the introductory conversation.
Man.
You understand?
Wow.
So
Wow. I was not ready for that. I didn't see that. I did not.
Maybe you were looking for an opportunity.
Just shock you into
Sure. He was like,
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Fatherhood and Sonship. Like, share, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for next week's episode of What is Sonship Part 2.